This is just me making another recap video of the last year or so, doing advocating for rational world peace, and all the things that I ask, the answers have been consistent, and that's why I usually make these recap videos. I try to make recap videos just to share with people that we as the general population want a sense of peace and prosperity. You know, that's where the majority of us stay, and that's why I ask people if they think world peace is possible, to kind of pick their brains and see what they really think about it. And their answers have all been consistent. It's either yes, they think it's possible, and they give explanations of why. One of my favorite answers was, if this all is possible to be this negative, then the opposite could be true. And that was something I really enjoyed hearing. And the people that say no, rarely do I find anybody who's fixated on optimism for a general sense of world peace. They'll say no, but I wish it was. And that's where the majority of people who say no want things to be. And that's why I started advocating on the idea of rational world peace, so we can actually put our foot in the door collectively and start doing it. You know, because like I explained to people, it's not something that's just going to be wished for or snap of the fingers and it happens. It's something that takes a lot of consistent hard work and conviction, and that's been one of the major points I share when I talk to people, is that we can get it done. We can make it possible. Yeah, there are bad people who dictate the general outcome of society with their greed and manipulation, but that's all it really is. It's all just a sense of greed and manipulation versus general peace and prosperity. You know, that's what it's always been. It's never been about race. It's never been about anything that you can think of to divide people. It's always just been rooted with greed and manipulation, whether it's financial greed or emotional greed. You know, those things both usually go hand in hand, and that's why I started advocating, because I don't like that. I don't like that we live like this. This is the world that everybody now that's living it was born into. The world where greed and manipulation is the primary directive for the entire outcome of society. You know, that's pointless. It's never been a meaningful purpose for the general society. It's always just been the wishes of the few and the outcome of everyone else. You know, and that's why I started sharing these things and talking to people, and it all ends with us ending it. I leave comments on posts and I make videos. That's always the answer. It always just ends when we work together to end it. There's nothing else. There'll be a lot of moving parts from every person in general, but that's how we'll get the desired outcome. If people start undoing the division, you know, and that's very possible. It's just we're inclined to believe that the division is part of human nature, and in a primitive general sense, it is. It always has been, right? We all want better resources for our general wealth and health, and we want to prosper in our own way. But the way things are now, we have the option to change it. You know, we've had the option for many generations to change that outcome, only by changing our general perspective of society. Because that's where we're all trapped. You know, I talk to people about this point, is that we're trapped in assuming that we know what people are and people are like. So a big response I get is, I would want to live in world peace, but people are this, people are that. If that's the average answer, that means the average answer is telling me that people want world peace, but they're not ready to understand that they are the people that people have as an excuse. Like saying everybody is the excuse. Everybody else is the reason why we don't. But if everybody says that, that means everybody is the person that falls into that category, which is just contradictory. It's like saying, I can't post videos and talk about this because people don't want to listen to it, because people don't watch my videos. That doesn't stop me. It doesn't stop me from advocating. It doesn't stop me from posting videos. And that's just the general sentiment for all of it. If we all move our grain of sand from one spot to another, we can move the beach. And by that I mean, if we all choose to put our effort in to working together, to figure out how to work together, it can be done. We can get it done. We can get the beginning stages of world peace done in the next 5 to 10 years. Speculatively. And it's all possible through our own free will. It's all possible through our own free will and just wanting to see it, wanting to get it done, removing the societal excuses that have always existed, putting the blame on bad people, the greedy and the manipulative, saying they're the reason why there's the reason. Yeah, they in a sense they are, but the ultimate blame falls on all of us. The ultimate blame falls on every individual who has an excuse that aligns with everybody else's similar excuse. That's where the real problem is. The real problem isn't this person and that person is doing that. No, it's everybody who can do something about it isn't doing something about it. And it's not easy. It's not like we can all just quit our jobs and go out and do what we want to do and say what we want to say. No, it takes a lot of hard, calculated work. You know, it's as easy as saying, move that 300-pound dumbbell across the football field in the next minute by yourself. And you can't expect anybody to do that unless they've had the exact amount of strength and work ethic to achieve that strength to get it done. And that's what moving the world is. We won't change anything if we don't choose to collectively change everything. And it's not about everybody just waking up one day and saying, we're going to do it. No, it's about people understanding where the division happens and why it's continuing to happen. And it's all just a mental division. You know, it's not about religion. It's not about our physical attributes. It's not about stuff like that. It's about the mental division that has been woven into our general society, where we have that base understanding, and it's not going to stop unless we choose to change it. I can choose to have a problem, but I can also choose to work on that problem. And that's what this is. We all have to choose to work on the problem. And the problem starts and ends with us. And we have to start talking as strangers, talking to the strangers around us at the bus stop, at the train, at the grocery store, in the laundromat, at the park, everywhere and anywhere. Really, there's always typically a stranger to talk to. And what I've learned from talking to stranger after stranger, majority of the strangers that I encounter are typically open to a conversation about this topic. And those are the same strangers I use to make these videos, as, in a sense, having proof that it is possible, that we can do it. You know, if the average person I talk to that's a complete stranger that I find wherever I find myself, and I talk to and I ask them these questions, and they give me the same usual answer, that's it. That was it. That was all that it took. But if you multiply that action by 10% of the population, if 10% of the population talks to 10% of the population, give or take a couple percentage for people that talk to people that are already talking to people, that's about almost 20% on the high note. We've already talked to the 20%. And the 20% of the population understands that we can do this and we should do this, and that it is hard work and it is all possible to change the outcome of society so we can have a general sense of peace and prosperity. You just double it from 20 to 40% of the population. There's no more real language barriers. All that stuff exists, but always to an extent. There's translation apps and stuff that help people have conversations with other people. And that's why I started making these videos and started telling people, if we want to see this end, and we want to live in a world that has peace and prosperity, it has to come from us taking the opportunities given to us and talking to strangers, acknowledging that some strangers don't give a damn about it and won't until they see it with their own eyes, and some strangers will never be for it, and that's perfectly fine. But we can see, and we should be able to learn, that the majority of the population wants to live in peace and prosperity, and that's something that we can make possible within our lifetime, not just for us, but for everybody that would benefit from it, and that's the majority of the population. So my plea to people who happen to watch this, please just talk to a stranger about changing the world, because once enough strangers talk, it won't be an idea, it'll be an action, and that action can make us feel accepted in our own world, and we can finally be the generations that figured out how to make peace and prosperity a reality.